Maria Santos was not like the other kids at Roosevelt High School. While most teenagers spent their free time scrolling through social media or hanging out at the mall, Maria could be found under the hood of a car. Her hands were always dirty, with grease, and her mind was always thinking about how engines worked. She loved the challenge of fixing things that others said were broken beyond repair. Her father, Carlos, worked at night cleaning the offices and hallways at Westfield Regional Airport. It was not a fancy job, but Carlos took pride in his work. He made sure every floor was spotless and every trash can was empty before he went home each morning. Maria often picked him up after her shift at Tony's auto repair shop where she worked, part-time after school. The money Maria earned fixing cars helped her family pay the bills. Her mother had passed away when Maria was 14, leaving just her and her father to take care of each other. They lived in a small apartment above the neighborhood bakery and every dollar counted, but Maria did not mind the hard work. She actually enjoyed getting her hands dirty and solving mechanical problems that stumped even experienced mechanics. On this particular Tuesday evening in November, dark clouds were building in the sky. The weather forecast had been warning about a major storm all day. Rain was already starting to fall as Maria drove her old pickup truck toward the airport to get her father. She had stayed late at the auto shop to finish rebuilding an engine for Mrs. Peterson's sedan, and now she was running behind schedule. When Maria arrived at the airport, she immediately noticed something unusual. A beautiful, white private jet was parked on the tarmac, which was strange because small planes rarely landed at Westfield Regional after dark. The airport was mainly used for small commercial flights and pilot training during the day. As she walked toward the terminal building, she could see her father through the large windows mopping the floor as usual, but Carlos was not alone. A well-dressed woman was standing near the information desk, talking animatedly on her phone. Even from a distance, Maria could tell the woman was upset about something. She was gesturing with her free hand and pacing back and forth across the small waiting area. The woman wore an expensive-looking dark blue business suit and carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Maria's truck. Maria pushed through the glass doors and walked over to where her father was working. Carlos looked up and smiled when he saw his daughter, but there was concern in his eyes. He nodded toward the woman and spoke quietly in Spanish, explaining that the lady's plane had made an emergency landing because of engine trouble. The storm had grounded her regular pilot in Chicago, and now she was stuck with no way to get to an important business meeting. The woman, who had introduced herself as Catherine to the airport staff, was clearly frustrated. Maria could hear pieces of her phone conversation as she tried to find another flight or rental car. But the storm was affecting travel throughout the region, and nothing was available until at least Thursday. Catherine needed to be in Denver by Wednesday morning for what she kept calling the most important meeting of her career. Maria watched as Catherine hung up her phone and sat down heavily in one of the plastic chairs. The confident businesswoman from a few minutes ago now looked tired and worried. She rubbed her temples and stared at the floor, probably trying to figure out what to do next. The airport's part-time mechanic had gone home hours ago, and even if they could reach him, he only worked on small single-engine planes, not sophisticated jets. This was when Maria's curiosity got the better of her. She had always been fascinated by aircraft engines, even though she had never worked on one. During her lunch breaks at the auto shop, she often watched YouTube videos about jet engine maintenance and read aviation forums online. She had even completed several online courses about aircraft systems, dreaming that someday she might work at a major airport instead of a small-town garage. Maria walked over to Catherine and politely cleared her throat. The woman looked up with tired eyes, probably expecting another person to tell her there was nothing that could be done. Instead, Maria asked if she could take a look at the plane's engine. Catherine's first reaction was surprise, then skepticism. After all, Maria was just a teenager wearing work boots and coveralls with Tony's Auto Repair embroidered on the chest pocket. But something about Maria's calm confidence made Catherine pause. The young woman was not bragging or making wild promises. She simply explained that she had been working on engines since she was 12 years old and had recently studied jet engine basics online. Maria asked specific technical questions about the symptoms the plane had shown during flight, questions that impressed Catherine with their sophistication. Catherine realized she had two choices. She could sit in the airport all night hoping for a miracle, or she could let this determined young mechanic try to help. The worst that could happen was that Maria would confirm what everyone already suspected, that the plane needed professional attention that was not available until the storm passed. Meanwhile, Carlos had finished his cleaning duties and joined the conversation. He was proud of his daughter's mechanical skills but nervous about her working on such an expensive aircraft. He had seen Maria fix everything from motorcycle engines to diesel trucks, but a private jet was completely different. One mistake could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Catherine made her decision. She told Maria that she was willing to let her examine the engine, but only if Maria was completely honest about what she found. If the problem was beyond Maria's abilities, she needed to say so immediately. Maria agreed to these terms and asked Catherine to show her to the aircraft. The three of them walked out into the increasingly heavy rain. Lightning flashed in the distance as they approached the sleek white jet. Up close, the aircraft was even more impressive than it had looked from inside the terminal. Maria had never seen anything so beautiful and sophisticated. The jet's smooth lines and perfect paint job made her old pickup truck look like a rust bucket in comparison. Catherine used her key to open the engine compartment while Maria grabbed a flashlight from her truck. As soon as the cover was lifted, Maria could smell something that reminded her of burnt coffee mixed with hot metal. She listened carefully as Catherine described the rough idling and power fluctuations that had forced the emergency landing. The engine had been running fine until about an hour before they reached Westfield, when it started making unusual noises and losing power intermittently. Maria shined her flashlight into the engine compartment and immediately noticed several things that seemed wrong. Years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts when diagnosing mechanical problems. She could see that some of the fuel lines were vibrating more than they should, and there was a slight discoloration around one of the injector assemblies that suggested irregular burning. After examining the engine for about 20 minutes, Maria stood up and wiped her hands on a rag. She looked at Catherine seriously and said she thought she knew what was wrong, but she would need to remove several components to be sure. The problem appeared to be a clogged fuel injector combined with a failing gasket that was allowing air into the fuel system. It was the kind of issue that would cause exactly the symptoms Catherine had described. Catherine asked how long the repair would take and whether Maria was confident she could fix it without causing additional damage. Maria explained that she would need about 4 hours to properly clean the injector and replace the gasket, assuming she could find the right parts. She was honest about the risks. If she made a mistake, the engine could be damaged beyond repair. But if she did nothing, Catherine would definitely miss her meeting. The decision was not easy for Catherine. She was trusting a teenage mechanic she had just met with a multi-million-dollar aircraft. But something about Maria's methodical approach and honest assessment gave her confidence. This young woman clearly knew what she was talking about, and she was not making promises she could not keep. As the storm grew stronger outside, Catherine told Maria to go ahead with the repair. She would rather take a calculated risk with someone who understood the problem than wait helplessly for help that might not come in time. Maria nodded seriously and asked her father to help her gather the tools she would need from her truck and the airport's small maintenance shed. The real work was about to begin, and Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she prepared to tackle the biggest mechanical challenge of her young life. She had no idea that this rainy November night would change everything for her and her father, setting them both on a path toward a future they had never dared to imagine. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the metal roof of the small airport terminal. Maria gathered her tools from the back of her pickup truck, while her father, Carlos, held an umbrella over her head. The wind was picking up, making their task even more difficult. Lightning flashed across the sky every few minutes, followed by deep rumbles of thunder that seemed to shake the ground beneath their feet. Catherine stood nearby, watching Maria organize her equipment with the precision of someone who had done this countless times before. The young woman laid out wrenches, screwdrivers, and diagnostic tools on a clean tarp, arranging everything in perfect order. It reminded Catherine of watching surgeons prepare for an operation. Every movement was deliberate and purposeful. Maria, asked Catherine to help her move a work light closer to the engine compartment. Even with the airport's exterior lighting, she needed better visibility to work safely on such delicate components. As they positioned the bright LED lamp, Maria explained exactly what she planned to do step by step. She wanted Catherine to understand the process and feel comfortable with the repair approach. The first step was to disconnect the fuel lines leading to the suspect injector. Maria worked slowly and carefully, making sure to catch every drop of fuel in a container. She had learned from experience that rushing a repair usually led to bigger problems later. As she loosened each connection, she explained to Catherine why fuel injectors were so important in jet engines and how even a small blockage could cause major performance issues. Carlos watched his daughter work with a mixture of pride and anxiety. He had seen Maria fix dozens of cars and trucks over the years, but this was different. The stakes were so much higher. If something went wrong, they could face a lawsuit that would destroy their family financially. But he also knew that Maria had never started a job she could not finish. Her determination and skill had impressed everyone at Tony's auto repair shop, including mechanics with decades of experience. As Maria removed the fuel injector assembly, she discovered that her initial diagnosis had been correct. The tiny holes in the injector were partially blocked with a sticky residue that looked like burnt fuel mixed with carbon deposits. She showed the part to Catherine, pointing out how the blockage would disrupt the precise fuel spray pattern needed for efficient combustion. This explained the rough running and power loss Catherine had experienced during flight. The cleaning process required patience and attention to detail. Maria used specialized solvents and ultrasonic cleaning equipment that she had borrowed from the airport's small maintenance facility. While the injector soaked in the cleaning solution, she turned her attention to the leaking gasket that was allowing air to enter the fuel system. The rubber seal had hardened with age and developed tiny cracks that were invisible to the naked eye but large enough to cause problems. Finding a replacement gasket at midnight in a small town seemed impossible at first. But Maria remembered that Tony's auto repair shop stocked a variety of gaskets for different applications. She called her boss Tony on his cell phone, waking him up to ask if she could borrow a gasket that might work as a temporary replacement. Tony was grumpy about being awakened but agreed to meet them at the shop to help find a suitable part. The three of them drove through the storm to the auto repair shop, where Tony was waiting with the keys. Inside the cluttered parts room, Maria searched through boxes of gaskets until she found one that was almost the right size. With careful trimming and adjustment, she was able to modify it to fit perfectly. Tony was impressed by her ingenuity and refused to accept payment for the part, saying it was his contribution to helping a stranded traveler. Back at the airport, Maria continued working despite the worsening weather. The wind was now strong, enough to rock the small aircraft slightly, making her job more challenging. She had to pause several times when lightning strikes were too close for safety. Each delay made Catherine more nervous about missing her morning meeting, but she tried to stay patient and let Maria work at her own pace. The fuel injector cleaning was taking longer than expected. Maria discovered that the deposits were more stubborn than they had first appeared. She had to repeat the cleaning process 3 times before she was satisfied with the results. Under her magnifying glass, the tiny spray holes finally looked clear and uniform. She tested the injector by blowing compressed air through it, listening for any irregularities in the flow pattern. While Maria worked, Catherine found herself genuinely interested in the repair process. She asked questions about how jet engines differed from car engines and why fuel injection was so critical for aircraft performance. Maria was happy to explain the technical details in simple terms, drawing diagrams on a piece of cardboard to illustrate the concepts. It was clear that the young mechanic had a deep understanding of engine theory, not just practical repair skills. Carlos stayed busy helping his daughter by organizing tools, holding flashlights, and bringing coffee from the terminal vending machine. He was amazed by how calmly Maria worked under pressure. Even when she encountered unexpected complications, she never seemed to panic or get frustrated. Instead, she would step back, think through the problem, and develop a new approach. This methodical problem-solving ability had served her well throughout her young career. As the night wore on, Maria began the delicate process of reassembling the fuel system. Every connection had to be perfect. Too loose and fuel would leak. Too tight and fittings could crack. She used a torque wrench to ensure that each bolt was tightened to the exact specification recommended by the aircraft manufacturer. Catherine was impressed by this attention to detail and began to feel more confident that the repair would be successful. The moment of truth came when Maria was ready to test the engine. She had Catherine start the aircraft while she listened carefully to the engine sounds. At first, there was some rough idling as the fuel system purged air bubbles and established proper flow patterns, but gradually the engine began to run more smoothly. The irregular vibrations that had plagued the aircraft earlier were gone, replaced by the steady hum of a properly functioning jet engine. Maria spent another hour running diagnostic checks and monitoring engine parameters. She wanted to be absolutely certain that the repair was complete and that no other issues had developed during the work. The fuel flow rates looked normal, the engine temperature was stable, and all the warning lights remained off. Everything indicated that the aircraft was ready to fly again. As dawn approached, the storm finally began to weaken. The rain reduced to a light drizzle, and the wind died down to a gentle breeze. Catherine looked at her watch and realized that there was still time to reach Denver for her important meeting. The relief on her face was obvious as she thanked Maria repeatedly for the excellent work. But Catherine's gratitude went beyond just appreciation for the repair. She was genuinely impressed by Maria's technical knowledge, work ethic, and professional approach. The young woman had diagnosed a complex problem, developed an effective solution, and executed the repair with the skill of someone twice her age. Catherine had worked with many mechanics over the years, and few had impressed her as much as this teenager from a small town. Before preparing for departure, Catherine pulled out her business card and pressed it into Maria's hand. She told the young mechanic that if she ever wanted to work in aviation professionally, she should call the number on the card. Maria looked at the elegant card with its embossed logo and contact information, thinking it was probably just a polite gesture from a grateful customer. As Catherine's jet taxied toward the runway, Maria and her father watched from the terminal window. The aircraft's engine sounded strong and steady as it accelerated down the runway and lifted smoothly into the gray morning sky. Maria felt a sense of satisfaction that she had never experienced before. She had successfully repaired her first aircraft, proving to herself that her mechanical skills could translate to aviation. Carlos put his arm around his daughter's shoulders as they watched the jet disappear into the clouds. He was incredibly proud of what Maria had accomplished during the long, difficult night. She had taken on a challenge that would have intimidated experienced mechanics and succeeded through determination, skill, and careful attention to detail. As they drove home through the quiet streets of their small town, Maria tucked Catherine's business card into her wallet and tried to put the entire experience into perspective. It had been an exciting adventure, but she assumed it was just a one-time opportunity to help a stranded traveler. She had no idea that Catherine was already making plans that would change Maria's life forever, or that the woman whose jet she had fixed was about to become the most important mentor she would ever have. The financial impact on Maria's family would be enormous. Carlos had been working double shifts for years, trying to save money for his daughter's college education. Even with his sacrifices, they had only managed to set aside enough money for Maria to attend the local community college for 2 years. The Skybridge Scholarship would eliminate this financial burden entirely and provide opportunities that the Santos family had never dared to dream about. Catherine emphasized that this was not charity or a simple gesture of gratitude. She was making this investment because she genuinely believed that Maria had the potential to become a leader in the aviation industry. The young woman's combination of technical skill, problem-solving ability, and work ethic was exactly what Skybridge Airlines needed for its continued growth and success. Catherine was confident that Maria would more than repay the company's investment through her future contributions. As the meeting continued, Maria began to find her voice again. She asked thoughtful questions about the academic program, the internship, opportunities, and her future career path with Skybridge Airlines. Catherine was impressed by the maturity and intelligence of Maria's questions, which confirmed her belief that she had found someone truly special. The conversation gradually shifted from Catherine explaining the opportunity to the two of them discussing Maria's goals and aspirations for the future. When the meeting finally ended, Maria walked back to her chemistry class in a daze. Her classmates were still taking notes about molecular bonding, but Maria's mind was soaring at 30,000 feet. Everything about her future had changed in the span of a single hour. The girl who had gone to sleep, worried about paying for community college, was now looking at a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. Maria could barely concentrate on her classes as she thought about airplanes, engineering courses, and the incredible woman who had decided to invest in her future. She kept touching the business card in her textbook, knowing that it represented so much more than she had ever imagined possible. The acceptance of Catherine's offer marked the beginning of the most incredible chapter in Maria's life. That evening, when she told her father Carlos about the scholarship and mentorship opportunity, he sat down heavily in his favorite chair and began to cry. For the first time in years, these were tears of joy instead of worry. The man who had worked countless double shifts to save money for his daughter's education could finally see a bright future ahead for both of them. The months leading up to Maria's departure for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University flew by quickly. Catherine stayed in regular contact, helping Maria prepare for the academic challenges ahead. She sent books about aviation engineering, arranged video calls with current students at the university, and even flew Maria to the Skybridge Airlines headquarters for a tour of their maintenance facilities. Each experience opened Maria's eyes to possibilities she had never imagined. At the Skybridge maintenance hangar, Maria met dozens of skilled technicians and engineers who welcomed her like family. They showed her the sophisticated diagnostic equipment used to maintain modern aircraft, explained the complex systems that kept passengers safe, and shared stories about their own careers in aviation. Many of them had started with humble backgrounds similar to Maria's, and they were excited to help guide the next generation of aviation professionals. The university experience exceeded all of Maria's expectations. Embry-Riddle was like stepping into a different world, surrounded by students who shared her passion for aircraft and engineering. Her professors were impressed by her practical experience and natural understanding of mechanical systems. While other students struggled with theoretical concepts, Maria could visualize how engines actually worked because she had taken them apart with her own hands. During her first summer break, Maria returned to work at Skybridge Airlines as promised. Catherine had arranged for her to rotate through different departments, learning about flight operations, customer service, and business management in addition to technical maintenance. This broad exposure helped Maria understand that running an airline required much more than just keeping planes in the air. Every aspect of the business was interconnected, and success depended on teamwork and attention to detail. Maria's fresh perspective and innovative thinking quickly caught the attention of everyone at Skybridge. She suggested improvements to maintenance, procedures that reduced the time aircraft spent on the ground for repairs. Her ideas for better inventory management saved the company thousands of dollars in parts costs. Catherine watched with pride as her young protege grew into a confident professional who could contribute meaningfully to the company's success. The relationship between Maria and Catherine deepened beyond just professional mentorship. Catherine became like a second mother to Maria, offering guidance on everything from academic challenges to career decisions. She helped Maria navigate the complex world of corporate aviation and taught her valuable lessons about leadership and business strategy. In return, Maria brought energy and fresh ideas that reminded Catherine why she had fallen in love with aviation in the first place. Carlos also experienced dramatic changes in his life. The financial pressure of saving for Maria's education was gone, allowing him to reduce his work hours and take better care of his health. He was eventually promoted to head of facilities management at Westfield Regional Airport, a position that came with better pay and daytime hours. For the first time in years, father and daughter could have dinner together regularly and enjoy a more normal family life. As Maria progressed through her university studies, she began to specialize in aircraft systems engineering with a focus on fuel efficiency and environmental sustainability. Her senior project involved designing modifications to existing jet engines that could reduce fuel consumption by 15%. The project caught the attention of industry experts and earned Maria recognition as one of the top engineering students in her graduating class. Catherine made sure that Maria's academic achievements were celebrated appropriately. She arranged for Maria to present her senior project at the National Aviation Engineering Conference, where it received praise from professionals throughout the industry. Several major aerospace companies expressed interest in hiring Maria after graduation, but she had already committed to starting her career at Skybridge Airlines. Graduation day at Embry-Riddle was an emotional celebration for the entire Santos family. Carlos wore his best suit and beamed with pride as he watched his daughter receive her degree in aeronautical engineering with highest honors. Catherine sat beside him in the audience, equally proud of the remarkable young woman she had helped nurture over the past 4 years. The ceremony marked the end of Maria's student years and the beginning of her professional aviation career. Maria's first position at Skybridge Airlines was as a junior maintenance supervisor, overseeing a team of experienced technicians who had initially been skeptical about taking direction from someone so young. However, Maria's combination of theoretical knowledge and practical skills quickly earned their respect. She approached every challenge with the same methodical problem-solving approach that had served her well during that stormy night when she first met Catherine. Within 2 years, Maria had been promoted to senior maintenance supervisor, responsible for ensuring the airworthiness of Skybridge's entire fleet. Her innovative maintenance protocols improved safety ratings and reduced operational costs, earning recognition throughout the aviation industry. Professional magazines featured articles about her work, and she was invited to speak at conferences about the future of aircraft maintenance. Catherine continued to mentor Maria as she advanced through the company ranks. She taught her about the business side of aviation, including route planning, fleet management, and customer relations. Maria learned that successful airlines needed leaders who understood both technical operations and business strategy. This comprehensive education prepared her for even greater responsibilities within the organization. By age 26, Maria had been promoted to Director of Maintenance Operations for Skybridge Airlines. She now oversaw maintenance activities at airports throughout the Midwest, managing budgets worth millions of dollars and ensuring that hundreds of flights operated safely every day. The scared teenager who had once worried about paying for community college was now one of the youngest executives in the aviation industry. The story came full circle on a warm spring evening when Skybridge Airlines held a celebration event at Westfield Regional Airport. The small airport where Maria's journey had begun was now a regular stop for Skybridge flights, bringing jobs and economic growth to the community. Maria stood on the same tarmac where she had first met Catherine 8 years earlier, watching as passengers boarded an aircraft that she had personally supervised the maintenance of. Carlos joined his daughter on the tarmac, now wearing the uniform of the airport's head of facilities management instead of his old janitor coveralls. Together they watched the Skybridge jet taxi toward the runway, its engines running smoothly and efficiently. The aircraft represented everything they had achieved through hard work, determination, and the incredible generosity of a woman who had recognized potential in an unlikely place. Catherine approached them as the plane lifted off into the evening sky. She was now in her early 60s but still actively running Skybridge Airlines, which had grown into one of the most successful regional carriers in the country. The merger that Maria's emergency repair had made possible had transformed the company into a major player in the aviation industry, creating thousands of jobs and serving millions of passengers. As the three of them stood together watching the lights of the aircraft disappear into the distance, Catherine reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A simple engine problem had led to one of the most rewarding relationships of her career. Maria had not only justified every dollar invested in her education and development, but had become the daughter Catherine had never had. Maria looked at the woman who had changed her life forever and thought about all the young people who might be struggling with similar challenges right now. She and Catherine had already begun planning a scholarship program for other deserving students from working-class families, hoping to create opportunities for the next generation of aviation professionals. The program would be funded by Skybridge Airlines and administered through partnerships with technical schools and universities. The janitor's daughter, who had once fixed a broken-down jet engine, had become a leader in the aviation industry, but, more importantly, she had learned the value of helping others achieve their dreams. As the evening stars appeared in the darkening sky, Maria knew that her greatest adventures were still ahead. She had proven that with determination, hard work, and the support of people who believe in you, even the most impossible dreams can take flight.